A waitress answered a call in Russian in front of a millionaire. Next day, she boarded a private jet. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. Emma had always been a simple woman with simple dreams. Working as a waitress in a small but bustling cafe in the heart of the city, she had never imagined her life would take a drastic turn. It was just an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day when the cafe buzzed with the regular hum of customers chatting over coffee and pastries. Emma moved swiftly between tables, her worn sneakers barely making a sound on the tiled floor as she carried plates and refilled coffee cups. She was used to the routine, the clinking of silverware, and the quiet chatter that made up her world. But that afternoon, something unusual happened. As Emma set down a cup of coffee on a table by the window, she felt a sudden shiver run down her spine. A man sat alone at the table, his sharp eyes hidden behind stylish sunglasses, but his gaze was locked onto her. He had a quiet intensity about him that made her feel uneasy. She couldn't explain why, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this man was not who he seemed to be. As Emma turned to walk away, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was an unexpected call. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and saw an unknown number flashing. She hesitated, but answered it anyway, her voice unsure. Hello. She spoke softly. On the other end, a deep, commanding voice greeted her in Russian. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had grown up speaking Russian, and without thinking, she responded in the same language, her words flowing naturally. The man at the table looked up, his eyes narrowing as he listened intently. Emma had no idea that the stranger before her was none other than Victor Delacroix, a billionaire tech mogul who had been quietly observing her for the last few weeks. He had been in town for business meetings, but something about Emma intrigued him. Her grace, her determination, and her effortless kindness had caught his attention. He wasn't expecting the waitress to answer a call in Russian, nor was he expecting to feel drawn to her so quickly. Victor had seen many people in his life, but Emma was different. When she finished the call, she looked flustered, barely meeting his gaze as she picked up the empty cup. Sorry about that, she murmured, trying to brush off the awkwardness. Victor gave a slight nod, his lips curling into a subtle smile. No need to apologize, he said, his voice warm, but with an air of mystery. Emma felt a strange connection, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Little did she know, her life was about to change forever. That evening, as Emma walked home, she couldn't stop thinking about the man in the cafe. Something about him felt familiar, but she couldn't figure out why. She had no idea that Victor, the man she had just served, had taken an interest in her far beyond the typical restaurant interaction. The next day, as Emma arrived at work, she was stunned to see a sleek black car waiting outside the cafe. A tall figure stepped out from the driver's side, and Emma's heart skipped a beat as she recognized Victor from the day before. He smiled as he approached her. I was hoping you would join me for a ride, he said with a quiet confidence. There's something I want to discuss with you. Emma's mind raced, wondering what this was all about. Was he some kind of business mogul? What did he want from her? With hesitation, but curiosity, she agreed. Little did she know, she was about to step into a world she never imagined. The moment she stepped into that car, her life would be forever intertwined with Victor's, leading her on a journey that would take her places she had only dreamed of, quite literally, as she would soon find herself boarding a private jet, flying toward a destiny she never saw coming. As Emma stepped into the sleek black car, she couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement mixed with anxiety. She had no idea what Victor wanted, or why he had invited her into his world. As the car began to move, the city streets seemed to blur into a distant memory, replaced by the smooth, quiet hum of the engine. It was as if the world outside no longer mattered. Inside, everything felt foreign and yet strangely welcoming. The soft leather seats, the quiet luxury of the car, it was nothing like the hustle and bustle of her everyday life at the cafe. Emma glanced at Victor, who sat across from her, his eyes fixed out the window. He didn't say anything at first, and neither did she. The silence between them was comfortable, but it was also filled with anticipation. "You're wondering why I brought you here," Victor said after a long pause. His voice was calm, but there was a depth to it, as if he were measuring every word carefully. Emma nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "I wasn't expecting this," she said, gesturing to the luxury around them. "I mean, I've never been in a car like this before." Victor turned his head, and for the first time, Emma saw a hint of amusement in his eyes. "I imagine you haven't. But that's not why I brought you here. I wanted to talk to you about what happened yesterday." Emma furrowed her brow. "What do you mean?" Victor gave her a knowing look, the kind of look that made her feel as though he knew something about her that she didn't even know herself. "The call. The Russian one," he said. "You didn't seem surprised. Most people would be." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to bring it up so directly. I was just answering a call," she stammered, feeling a flush creep up her neck. "It's not a big deal. I just happen to speak Russian." Victor nodded, his gaze never leaving her. "I know," he said softly. "That's what intrigued me. Most people wouldn't answer like that. But you did." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emma didn't know what to say. She felt exposed, as if she had revealed something about herself that she wasn't ready to share. But before she could respond, the car slowed and turned down a long driveway. Emma's breath caught as they approached a massive estate. The mansion was breathtaking, elegant, yet intimidating in its grandeur. It was the kind of place that looked like it belonged in a magazine, not in the real world. "Where are we?" Emma whispered, unable to hide the awe in her voice. "This is my home," Victor replied, his tone almost casual. "I thought you might like to see it." The car came to a stop, and the driver opened the door for them. As Emma stepped out, she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. She had never seen anything like this in her life. The lawn stretched out before her like a carpet of green, and the mansion loomed in the background, its windows glowing with soft, warm light. Victor led her inside, and she was immediately struck by the contrast between the cold, polished exterior and the warmth of the interior. The grand foyer was filled with rich wood paneling, plush furniture, and soft lighting that made the whole space feel inviting, yet still undeniably grand. Emma felt out of place, but at the same time, she couldn't deny that she was intrigued. Victor showed her around, pointing out various rooms and artwork, but Emma's mind kept returning to the question of why she was here. Why had he invited her? And why was he so interested in her? As they stood in front of a massive fireplace in the living room, Victor finally turned to her. "I wanted to bring you here because I see something in you," he said quietly. "Something rare? I don't know what it is yet, but I want to find out." Emma stared at him, trying to make sense of his words. She had never thought of herself as anything special, just a simple waitress, doing her best to make ends meet. But here she was, in the home of a man who could have anyone he wanted, and he was telling her that she was special. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why me?" Victor smiled, but it was a sad smile, as if he understood exactly how she felt. "Because you're not like the others," he said. "You're real. You don't try to be something you're not." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't know what he meant, but there was something about his words that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't before. "You know," Victor continued, "I've spent most of my life surrounded by people who only care about what they can get from me. People who don't care about who I really am. But you, Emma, you're different." The way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. She could feel her heart racing as she tried to process what he was saying. Was he just being kind? Or was there something more to his words? Before she could ask, Victor stepped closer, his gaze intense but soft. "I've been watching you for a while now," he said, "and I want to help you. I want to give you the opportunity to be more than you ever thought possible." Emma blinked, stunned by his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I mean, I want to help you change your life. I want to help you escape the struggles you've been facing. And I think you're ready for that." Emma's mind spun. This was more than she could have ever imagined. She had no idea what Victor saw in her, but something about his presence made her feel like anything was possible. For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to hope. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would lead her far beyond the small cafe she had worked in for years. I have to admit, Emma was more than a little overwhelmed as she stood in the grand living room of Victor's mansion. The fire crackled softly in the large stone fireplace, casting a warm glow across the rich wooden beams overhead. She had never been inside a house like this before. Everything about it felt larger than life. The opulent decor, the high ceilings, the luxurious furniture. It was all so far removed from the simple life she knew. She felt out of place here, but at the same time, something kept drawing her in. Victor had been kind to her since the moment she arrived, showing her around the mansion, telling her about the artwork that lined the walls, and even offering her a drink from his personal collection of fine wines. But Emma could still feel the tension in the air. What did he really want from her? Why had he brought her here, of all people? She couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was being watched, not in a creepy way, but in a way that made her feel both special and vulnerable. As she followed him down the hallway, her mind raced with 100 questions. Was this really just about kindness, or was there something deeper beneath the surface? So, tell me more about you, Emma, Victor said, breaking the silence between them as they entered a large study. His voice was calm, yet there was a hint of curiosity in it. What is it you want from life? Emma hesitated, surprised by the directness of his question. It felt like an interview, yet she didn't want to appear too guarded. She had always kept her dreams close to her chest, never sharing them with anyone. She had never felt comfortable talking about her hopes for the future, especially not with someone like Victor, a man who had everything at his fingertips. I don't know, she finally replied, the words escaping her before she could stop them. I guess I just want more. More than this. She gestured around her, taking in the opulent surroundings. I want a life where I don't have to worry about bills, where I can live without constantly feeling like I'm just surviving. Victor watched her intently, his gaze soft but focused. You deserve more than that, he said, his voice steady. You've got a fire in you, Emma. I can see it. Emma swallowed, unsure how to respond. She had never been told that before. No one had ever looked at her like she was more than just a waitress. She wasn't sure what to make of his words, but a small part of her wanted to believe him. I don't know what I'm doing here, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. This is all so new to me. I don't understand why you're helping me. Victor took a step closer, his expression thoughtful. I'm helping you because I see potential in you, he said. I see something in you that's different from the people I usually surround myself with. Emma frowned, confused. What do you mean? I'm just a waitress. I don't have anything special. That's exactly it, Victor replied, his voice low. You're not trying to be something you're not. You're real. And that's rare, especially in a world like mine. Emma blinked, feeling a lump form in her throat. She had never been complimented like this before. But I don't know how to be someone like you, she said quietly. I don't know how to live like this. Victor smiled gently. That's what I'm here for. I want to help you. I want to give you the chance to change your life. But first, you have to trust me. Emma's heart raced. Trust was not something she gave out easily. She had been burned before, betrayed by people who had promised her the world, only to leave her disappointed and broken. But there was something about Victor's sincerity that made her want to take a leap of faith. I'm not asking you to change who you are, Victor continued, as if reading her thoughts. I'm just asking you to let me help you get where you deserve to be. Emma nodded slowly, still processing everything he had said. Could she really trust him? Could she trust herself to take this risk? As the night wore on, Emma found herself growing more and more comfortable in Victor's presence. He had a way of making her feel at ease, even though everything around her felt so foreign. They talked about everything and nothing, about life, about dreams, about their pasts. Victor shared a little about his own upbringing, how he had come from nothing and built his empire from the ground up. Emma listened intently, fascinated by his story. She had always admired people who could achieve such success, but she never imagined she could be one of them. By the time they finished their conversation, Emma was exhausted but strangely content. Victor offered to show her to her room, and as she walked down the long corridor to the guest wing of the mansion, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was on the brink of something big, something that could change everything. She wasn't sure if she was ready for it, but a part of her knew that this was a chance she couldn't ignore. As she lay in the soft, luxurious bed that night, Emma closed her eyes and let herself drift off to sleep. Tomorrow would be the first day of her new life. Little did she know, the world she was about to enter would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, and change her forever. As the days passed, Emma slowly adjusted to her new life under Victor's watchful eye. The mansion, which had once seemed so intimidating, now felt more like a strange but inviting home. She spent her mornings exploring the vast grounds, getting to know the house staff, and learning the finer details of the world she had stepped into. Victor had told her that this was all about opportunity, that she had the potential to be someone more than just a waitress. But as the days wore on, Emma's doubts began to grow. Could she really fit into a world like this? Could she truly become someone else, someone who didn't have to struggle to make ends meet every month? It was hard to imagine. One afternoon, Victor invited her to join him for lunch at a high-end restaurant downtown, the kind of place where only the rich and powerful dined. The whole experience felt like another world to Emma, luxury at every turn. As she sat across from Victor, she couldn't help but feel like an outsider. The waitstaff treated them with a level of deference she had never experienced before, and the other patrons didn't seem to notice her at all. She was just another face in the crowd. But Victor, as always, treated her differently. He spoke to her as an equal, as if she belonged at that table, even though she felt worlds away from the polished men and women around them. "You look beautiful today," Victor said, his voice warm as he reached for his wine glass. Emma blushed slightly, not used to receiving such compliments. She wasn't used to anyone noticing her in such a way. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know what to say. This is all so new to me." Victor smiled, his eyes soft, but full of meaning. "I know it's overwhelming. But trust me, Emma, you belong here. You have something that others don't. And that's why I brought you into this world." Emma looked down at her hands, unsure of how to respond. She had never been one for luxury or extravagance. The life she had known, working long hours, scraping by, was the only life she had ever understood. But there was something in Victor's words that made her wonder if maybe she had been wrong all along. Maybe she wasn't destined to live the life she had always known. "I don't know if I can do this," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not like you. I don't know how to navigate this world." Victor's gaze softened, and he leaned forward slightly. "That's why I'm here, Emma. To help you find your way. You don't have to be like me, but you can learn to stand tall in your own way. And I'll be here to guide you." Emma took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. She still didn't know what the future held, but a part of her wanted to believe him. A part of her wanted to believe that this world, this life, was something she could learn to navigate. As the meal came to an end, Victor stood up and offered her his arm. "Come on. I have something to show you," he said, a playful glint in his eyes. Emma hesitated for a moment but then took his arm, allowing him to lead her out of the restaurant and into the bright, bustling streets. Victor's car was waiting outside, and as they drove through the city, Emma felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She had no idea what was coming next, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life was changing in ways she couldn't have imagined. The car stopped in front of a building she had never seen before, a sleek, modern structure that seemed to stretch toward the sky. Emma looked at Victor, confused. "What is this?" she asked. Victor smiled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "This is where your new journey begins," he said, opening the door for her. "Come on, let's go inside." Emma followed him into the building, which was even more impressive on the inside. The lobby was bright and airy, with high ceilings and walls adorned with abstract art. A receptionist greeted them with a smile, and before Emma knew it, they were whisked up to the top floor. "This is my office," Victor said, as they entered a large, open space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. Emma's mouth fell open. She had never seen anything like this before. The office was sleek and modern, with minimalist furniture and state-of-the-art technology. Victor motioned for her to sit, and as she did, he leaned against the desk. "I wanted to bring you here because this is where you're going to start. I've arranged for you to take on a position here, working with my team." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "A position?" she asked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "But I don't have any experience in this world. I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything about business or finance." Victor smiled gently. "That's exactly why I'm giving you this chance. You have a unique perspective, Emma. You see the world differently than most people in my circle, and I think that's a gift. You'll start small, of course, but I'm confident you can rise up. I believe in you." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never been told that someone believed in her before. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you. I don't know if I'm ready for this." "You will be," Victor said, his voice reassuring. You're stronger than you think. And together, we're going to make sure you succeed. Emma's mind was spinning, but as she looked around the office, a sense of possibility began to form. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance she had been waiting for. This was the opportunity that could change everything. And for the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe it could happen. The following week, Emma started her new job in Victor's company. The first day was overwhelming. She had never worked in a corporate environment, let alone in the tech industry, and the sleek, glass-walled office felt worlds away from the humble cafe where she had spent most of her days. Still, she walked in with a sense of determination. Victor had given her this chance, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. As she walked through the bustling office, her eyes widened at the sight of the high-powered executives, some of them deeply engrossed in phone calls, others discussing complex projects with a level of expertise she couldn't even begin to understand. She felt a pang of doubt, but she pushed it aside. She was here to learn. Emma. A voice called, pulling her from her thoughts. She turned to see a young woman, probably around her age, standing in front of her. I'm Sarah, the woman said with a friendly smile. Victor asked me to show you the ropes. You're going to be working with me on a few things today. How's everything going so far? Emma smiled back, grateful for the warmth in Sarah's tone. It's a lot to take in, she admitted. But I'm excited to get started. Sarah nodded understandingly. Don't worry, we'll take it one step at a time. You'll catch on quickly. As Sarah led her through the office, Emma found herself drawn to the energy in the air. The team here was hardworking, driven, and incredibly focused. It was a far cry from the laid-back atmosphere she had been used to, but there was something motivating about it. Victor's office had been a sanctuary of quiet power, but the energy here was dynamic, fast-paced. Emma was starting to see why he believed she had potential. She wasn't just someone who worked hard. She had something that could thrive in this environment. Throughout the day, Sarah explained the ins and outs of the company, giving Emma a crash course in the tech industry. By the time lunch rolled around, Emma was exhausted but exhilarated. It was a lot to take in, but she was beginning to understand. As they sat down for lunch in the sleek cafeteria, Sarah continued to chat with Emma, making her feel more comfortable with each passing moment. I know it's a lot, but trust me, Sarah said, popping a bite of salad into her mouth. You're going to do great here. Victor doesn't just give people chances like this unless he's sure they have what it takes. Emma looked up at Sarah, surprised. You know about that? She asked. Sarah chuckled. Victor doesn't talk about much, but when he does, it's usually about something important. You're a big deal to him, Emma. Don't sell yourself short. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had been doubting herself, wondering if she really had what it took to succeed in this high-stakes world. But hearing Sarah's words made her feel like maybe she wasn't so out of place after all. The rest of the day passed in a blur as Emma worked alongside Sarah, getting hands-on with some of the company's smaller projects. By the time she left the office that evening, her head was spinning with new information, but she felt accomplished. This was just the beginning, and she was eager to see where it would take her. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emma learned everything from project management to coding basics. She wasn't an expert yet, but with every task, she grew more confident. She spent late nights studying and practicing, determined to prove herself worthy of the opportunity Victor had given her. Victor had been supportive but distant. He didn't hover over her every step of the way, but he checked in from time to time to offer guidance and encouragement. His confidence in her never wavered, and it pushed Emma to work harder. But even as she excelled at her new job, a part of her still couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. The other employees seemed to fit so naturally into this world. They were polished, confident, and knew exactly how to navigate the corporate landscape. Emma, on the other hand, was still figuring it out. She often found herself doubting whether she truly belonged here. One late evening, as Emma stayed late in the office, putting the final touches on a project she had been working on for weeks, she heard a soft knock at her office door. She looked up to see Victor standing there, a thoughtful expression on his face. Emma, he said, walking in. How's everything going? She smiled, relieved to see him. It's going well. I'm just finishing up a few things. Victor nodded, taking a seat across from her. I wanted to check in. You're doing great, but I know this isn't easy. How are you feeling about everything? Emma hesitated, unsure of how to express her doubts. I'm still adjusting, she admitted. I'm working hard, but sometimes I feel like I don't belong. Like I'm not quite cut out for this. Victor leaned forward, his gaze intense yet kind. I brought you here for a reason, Emma. I see something in you that no one else does. You're not just another employee. You've got something unique. You belong here, more than anyone else. Emma blinked, surprised by his words. She had expected him to tell her she needed to try harder or that she needed to improve. But instead, he was telling her she already had what it took. His words sent a wave of warmth through her, and for the first time, she felt truly seen. Thank you, she said, her voice soft. That means a lot to me. Victor smiled, standing up to leave. Keep believing in yourself, Emma. You've got this. And remember, I'm here to help, every step of the way. As he walked out of her office, Emma sat there for a moment, letting his words sink in. She wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain. She was no longer just a waitress in a cafe. She was someone with potential, someone who was building a future she could be proud of. And with Victor's belief in her, Emma knew she had the support she needed to take on whatever came next. As Emma settled deeper into her new life, she started to see the world around her differently. The luxury, the opportunities, the high-powered people, it all became more familiar with each passing day. But there was still a part of her that couldn't fully believe this was real. It felt too easy, too perfect, as if the life she had known before was just a distant memory. One evening, after a long day of work, she sat at her desk in the office, scrolling through the notes she had taken over the course of the week. There was still so much she had to learn, so much she didn't understand. But she was proud of how far she had come. A few months ago, she could never have imagined herself in this position. The sound of footsteps approaching interrupted her thoughts. Emma looked up to see Victor standing in the doorway of her office, his expression unreadable. I hope I'm not interrupting, he said, his voice calm, but carrying a hint of something deeper. Emma smiled, feeling a sudden wave of comfort wash over her. Not at all, she said, pushing her papers aside. What's up? Victor stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I wanted to check in, he said, his tone warm yet serious. How are you feeling about everything? Your progress, the work. Emma hesitated. She had been so focused on proving herself, on fitting in with this new life, that she hadn't taken much time to reflect. But now, with Victor's question hanging in the air, she realized she wasn't entirely sure. I think I'm doing well, she said carefully. But there's still a lot to learn. I sometimes feel like I don't belong here, like everyone else knows so much more than I do. Victor smiled and walked over to her desk, sitting on the edge. That's normal, he said. Everyone starts somewhere. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Emma. I'm asking you to keep growing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. You've already shown that you have what it takes. Don't doubt that. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just the words he said, it was the belief behind them. Victor's faith in her made her feel stronger, more capable. Thank you, she said softly, looking up at him. I really appreciate it. I know I have a lot of work ahead of me, but I'm starting to see what you meant when you said I belong here. Victor's gaze softened, and for a moment, there was a quiet understanding between them. You do, he said simply, and that's why I'm trusting you with more. Emma blinked, surprised. More, she echoed. What do you mean? Victor stood up, walking over to a nearby table where a set of documents were neatly stacked. He picked them up and brought them to her. These are the details for an upcoming project. It's one of the biggest we've worked on, and I want you to take the lead on it. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Wait, you want me to lead the project? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She couldn't quite believe it. Are you sure? Victor placed the documents in front of her, meeting her gaze with that steady, confident look he always had. I wouldn't have offered it to you if I wasn't sure, he said. You've shown initiative, you've learned quickly, and most importantly, you've earned my trust. This project is yours. Emma swallowed, her mind racing. A part of her wanted to say no, to tell him she wasn't ready for something this big. But another part, the part that had been growing stronger since she arrived, urged her to take the leap. This was her chance. I won't let you down, she said, her voice firm with newfound resolve. Victor gave her a small smile. I know you won't. As Victor left her office that evening, Emma couldn't stop staring at the project details in front of her. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. But it also felt like the moment she could easily fail. She knew she had the skills to succeed, but she also knew how high the stakes were. This wasn't just about impressing Victor or the company. It was about proving to herself that she had truly changed, that she could handle a challenge this big. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, presentations, and late-night planning sessions. Emma threw herself into the project with everything she had. She worked closely with her team, making sure every detail was covered, every problem was addressed. As much as she still felt out of place in certain situations, she was determined to prove that she belonged in this world. She may not have known everything, but she was learning fast, and she was willing to work harder than anyone else. The project came to a head one crisp Friday morning, as Emma stood in front of a room full of executives, including Victor, presenting her plan. She had prepared for this moment for weeks, but now that it was here, she felt a wave of nerves wash over her. But as she spoke, she found herself gaining confidence with each word. The more she presented, the more she realized that she was speaking from a place of knowledge and passion. This was her work, her vision, and the plan she had crafted. By the time she finished, the room was silent. Then, one by one, the executives nodded in approval. Victor stood up, his expression unreadable as he walked toward her. "Well done, Emma," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that made her heart race. "You did it. This is exactly what I was hoping for." Emma blinked, surprised by his words. She had done it. She had led the project, and now it was a success. She felt a rush of pride flood her chest, and for the first time since she had joined Victor's company, she felt like she truly belonged. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone who had earned her place. And this was only the beginning. As Emma settled into her new role, the sense of accomplishment from her successful presentation lingered, but so did the pressure. It was a high-stakes world she had stepped into, and despite her progress, she could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on her. Victor had given her this opportunity, but now the real work began. She had to prove that she wasn't just a one-hit wonder, that she could maintain the momentum and thrive in this new world. The next few weeks were a blur of emails, meetings, and conference calls. Emma was now juggling her work with, overseeing multiple projects at once. Each new task felt like another mountain to climb, but she had learned to trust herself more. She wasn't just doing this to impress Victor anymore. She was doing it for herself. One Friday afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting, Emma found herself sitting at her desk, staring at the screen in front of her, trying to make sense of the numbers and charts she had just been given. She had always been good with details, but this was something else. The level of complexity was unlike anything she had encountered in her previous life. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Victor. "Meet me in the conference room in 15 minutes. I need to talk to you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She quickly gathered her things and made her way to the conference room, trying to calm the nerves that had started to creep in. When she entered, she found Victor standing by the window, looking out over the city. He turned as she walked in, offering her a warm smile. "Come in, Emma. I have something important to discuss." Emma nodded and took a seat across from him, her mind racing. Had something gone wrong with the project? Was she in trouble? Victor walked over to the table and placed a set of documents in front of her. "I've been reviewing your work, and I'm impressed," he said, his voice steady. "You've been handling things well, but I think it's time for you to take the next step." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Next step?" she echoed. Victor nodded. "Yes, you've earned it. I want to offer you a leadership role in one of our key projects. It's a big step, but I believe you're ready for it." Emma blinked, trying to process his words. A leadership role? She had never imagined being in charge of anything more than a small team, let alone leading a key project. I don't know if I'm ready for that," she admitted, her voice betraying her uncertainty. "I mean, this is a huge responsibility. What if I fail?" Victor walked over and sat beside her, his expression gentle but firm. "Emma, I've seen you grow since you first started here. You're not the same person who walked into this office a few months ago. You've proven yourself over and over. This is your chance to really shine." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And I'll be here to support you every step of the way. But I need to know that you're willing to take that step." Emma looked at the documents in front of her. She could feel her pulse racing. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when everything could change. But the fear of failure still lingered in her chest. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she knew that if she didn't take this opportunity, she might never get another chance. Taking a deep breath, she looked up at Victor. I'll do it, she said, her voice steady. I'm ready. Victor smiled, his eyes shining with pride. I knew you would say that. I'm excited to see what you'll do with this. Over the next few weeks, Emma threw herself into the new project. She worked closely with her team, organizing tasks, setting deadlines, and making sure everyone was on the same page. The responsibility was overwhelming at times, but Emma had never felt more alive. She was no longer just following orders. She was the one making decisions, leading the charge. Despite the stress, she felt a sense of pride she had never known before. She was doing something important, something that mattered. One evening, as she stayed late at the office, working on a presentation for the next big meeting, she received a message from Victor. Good work today. You're really starting to lead the way. I'm proud of you. Emma smiled at the message, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It meant more to her than she could express. As the weeks went by, Emma's confidence grew. She was getting better at managing the demands of the job, learning to navigate the complexities of her new role. Her team was responding to her leadership, and the project was moving forward successfully. But as things were progressing at work, there was something else that began to shift between her and Victor. They had grown closer over the past few months, sharing late-night talks about their goals, their pasts, and their futures. It wasn't just about work anymore. They had developed a deep mutual respect and understanding. One evening, after a particularly long day, Victor invited Emma to join him for a dinner at his favorite restaurant. You've earned it, he said with a smile when he extended the invitation. Emma hesitated for a moment, wondering if it was the right time, but then she agreed. As they sat at the dinner table, surrounded by the soft ambience of the restaurant, Emma found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't before. They talked about everything, about their dreams, their fears, their visions for the future. As the conversation flowed, Emma realized how much she had come to rely on Victor, not just as a mentor, but as a friend. After dinner, as they walked out of the restaurant, Victor turned to her, his expression soft but serious. Emma, he said, I want you to know that I believe in you. More than anyone else, I believe in what you can do. Emma felt a surge of emotion. She had come so far from the woman who had first walked into his office, nervous, uncertain, and overwhelmed. Now, she stood there, feeling capable, strong, and ready to face whatever came next. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. For the first time, Emma felt like she truly belonged in this world. She wasn't just the waitress who had been given a chance. She was someone who had earned her place, and she was ready to keep climbing. The weeks that followed Emma's dinner with Victor were filled with intense focus and growth. She had taken the reins of the new project, and the team was responding to her leadership. She had always been a hard worker, but now she was also learning to trust her instincts and lead with confidence. The more time she spent in this world, the more she realized just how far she had come. Once, she would have never imagined herself working in a high-rise office, making critical decisions, and collaborating with powerful people. But now, it felt like second nature. There were still moments of self-doubt, of course. No matter how much success she achieved, there was always that lingering voice in the back of her mind, telling her she wasn't truly cut out for this world. But every day, she proved that voice wrong. She was growing, and more importantly, she was starting to believe in herself. One particular afternoon, Victor called her into his office. When she walked in, she found him sitting at his desk, reviewing some documents. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. Come in, Emma. Have a seat, he said, gesturing to the chair in front of him. Emma sat down, trying to mask the nerves that were beginning to creep in. What's up? She asked, her voice casual but with a hint of curiosity. Victor leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. I've been keeping an eye on your progress, and I have to say, I'm impressed, he said, his voice steady. You've really proven yourself over the last few months. You've done more than just handle the responsibility. I've seen you grow into a leader. Emma felt a flush of pride, but also a little discomfort at the praise. Thank you, she said, keeping her tone modest. But there's still so much I don't know. Victor shook his head, his smile reassuring. That's the thing, Emma. You don't need to know everything. You've learned the most important lesson, how to lead, how to inspire those around you and make tough decisions when they need to be made. That's something you can't teach. Emma wasn't sure how to respond. She felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a lingering uncertainty. Was she really ready to lead in the way Victor seemed to believe? I'm still learning, she said quietly, more to herself than to him. Victor leaned forward, his expression more serious now. That's why I want you to take on an even bigger role. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Bigger, she repeated, unsure if she had heard him correctly. What do you mean? Victor didn't hesitate. I'm putting you in charge of one of our biggest upcoming projects. It's a high-profile deal, and I believe you're ready to take it on. You'll be responsible for the direction and the team. Emma's mind raced as she processed his words. A high-profile deal? It felt like the kind of opportunity most people spent their entire careers waiting for. But was she truly ready for it? She had never been more certain of her desire to prove herself, but this was a huge step. I don't know, Emma said, her voice tinged with doubt. I'm honored, but I'm also scared I won't be able to do it. What if I fail? Victor's expression softened, and he stood up, walking over to her side of the desk. Emma, I've never given you an opportunity one. Didn't think you were capable of handling. You're not going to fail. You have everything it takes, and I'll be here to guide you. But I need you to trust me, and more importantly, trust yourself. Emma stared at him for a moment, feeling the weight of his words sink in. Victor's belief in her was undeniable, but for the first time, she realized that she had to believe in herself as well. She couldn't rely solely on his confidence. This was her chance to prove to herself that she was ready to lead. After a long pause, she nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. I'll do it, she said, her voice firm. I won't let you down. Victor's smile returned, and for the first time, Emma felt truly confident in her decision. I knew you would say that. Let's get started. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of planning, meetings, and intense focus. Emma threw herself into the project with everything she had, working long hours and managing a team of talented individuals who trusted her vision. As the project progressed, Emma's confidence continued to grow. She was no longer just a part of the team, she was leading it. And with every decision she made, every obstacle she overcame, she felt herself becoming more and more the person she had always hoped to be. But with success came pressure. The higher she rose, the more responsibility she had to carry. There were days when the weight of it all felt too much. The late nights, the constant meetings, the endless decisions, it was exhausting. But Victor's words stayed with her. You have everything it takes. Emma learned to lean into her fear, using it to fuel her determination. She wasn't going to let herself fall. As the project neared completion, Emma found herself reflecting on how far she had come. She had started as a waitress, unsure of her place in the world, and now she was managing a major project for one of the most successful companies in the industry. It felt surreal, but it also felt like she had earned every step. On the final day of the project, Emma stood in front of a room full of executives, ready to present the completed work. As she spoke, she felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just about impressing anyone. It was about proving to herself that she could do this. She had taken the leap, and now she was reaping the rewards. When the presentation was over, the room erupted into applause. Victor was the first to stand, his face filled with pride. Well done, Emma, he said, walking up to her. You've done it. You've not only led this project to success, you've shown everyone here what it means to be a true leader. Emma smiled, overwhelmed by the praise. She had done it. She had proven to herself, and to Victor, that she was more than just a waitress who got lucky. She was a leader, and this was only the beginning. The next few months were nothing short of transformative for Emma. The high-profile project she had successfully led had launched her into a new level of respect within the company. She wasn't just a newcomer anymore. She was someone whose opinions and decisions were taken seriously. The team looked to her for direction, and she had become a reliable leader, managing multiple projects at once with ease. But with success came new challenges. The weight of responsibility that had once seemed overwhelming was now part of her daily life. She had learned to navigate the demands of her role, but she was beginning to feel the pressure more than ever before. The expectation to continue succeeding, to keep raising the bar, weighed heavily on her. Yet, as daunting as it was, there was something deeply fulfilling about the work. She was no longer just fighting for a chance to prove herself. She was creating her own path forward. One afternoon, after another long meeting with executives, Emma sat at her desk, her mind racing with the next steps for her team. As much as she had grown into her role, there was a lingering fear that she might stumble. What if she made a mistake? What if she failed? Just then, Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Victor. "Meet me in my office in an hour. We need to talk about the future." Emma's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't unusual for Victor to ask her to meet, but the way he phrased it made her feel like this conversation was going to be different. She quickly finished up the work in front of her and headed to his office. When she arrived, she found him sitting behind his desk, his usual calm demeanor replaced with something more serious. "Sit down, Emma," he said, his voice steady but with an edge of intensity. "I've been thinking about your future here, and I want to give you a new opportunity. It's going to be a big step forward for you." Emma's pulse quickened, but she remained composed. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep the uncertainty from creeping into her voice. Victor placed a folder on the desk, sliding it toward her. "This is a new role," he began. "A more senior position, one where you'll oversee multiple departments. You'll be working directly with some of our key partners and stakeholders. It's a lot of responsibility, but I believe you're ready." Emma stared at the folder, her mind spinning. A senior position? The idea of leading several departments seemed like something she wasn't quite ready for, even after all she had accomplished. She had come so far, but this was a new level entirely. "Victor, I don't know," she said, her voice faltering. "I'm honored by the opportunity, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for this kind of responsibility." Victor leaned forward, his expression soft but determined. "Emma, you've already proven more than you realize. You've taken on massive projects and led them to success. You've earned the trust of your team, and you've got the instincts of a true leader. This is your time to step into that role fully. And I'll be here to support you, as I always have." Emma felt a rush of emotion as she listened to his words. The self-doubt that had plagued her for so long began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of confidence. It wasn't just about Victor believing in her anymore. She was starting to believe in herself. "I want you to take this role, Emma," Victor continued. "But I need to know you're ready. The decision is yours." Emma sat back, taking a deep breath. She thought about everything she had been through, the challenges, the moments of doubt, and the people who had helped her along the way. It was overwhelming to think about how much had changed in such a short amount of time. But one thing was clear. She had come this far because she had pushed herself. She had taken risks, worked tirelessly, and embraced every challenge that came her way. This was no different. "I'm ready," she said, her voice firm and resolute. "I'll take the role." Victor smiled, a genuine sense of pride in his eyes. "I knew you would," he said, standing to shake her hand. "Congratulations, Emma. You've earned it." The following weeks were a blur of new responsibilities. Emma had to get up to speed quickly, meeting with department heads, learning new processes, and developing strategies for how she would manage the various teams. The role was demanding, but it was also incredibly rewarding. She was leading larger projects, influencing decisions that affected the entire company, and building relationships with key stakeholders. As the weeks passed, Emma continued to rise to the occasion. She tackled the complexities of her new role with the same determination that had gotten her this far. There were difficult moments, times when she felt overwhelmed by the weight of the decisions she had to make. But she never faltered. Each challenge only made her stronger. As she sat in her office one evening, reviewing plans for a major new initiative, Emma paused for a moment. She looked around the room, at the papers scattered across her desk, the awards on the wall, the photo of her and Victor on a recent business trip, and realized just how much she had accomplished. She was no longer the uncertain waitress who had walked into Victor's office months ago. She was a leader, a decision-maker, and a force to be reckoned with. And it was all because she had dared to believe in herself when no one else could. As she returned to her work, Emma knew that the journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges ahead, but now, she was ready for them. With each step, she was proving not only to the world but to herself that she had the strength, the skills, and the vision to succeed. The future was hers to shape, and she wasn't going to let anything stand in her way. As the months passed, Emma found herself fully entrenched in her new role. The responsibilities of leading multiple departments, managing high-profile projects, and being a key decision-maker were becoming second nature. She had pushed herself to prove her capabilities, and with each passing day, she felt more confident in her abilities. She was no longer just a woman who had been given a chance. She had become a true leader. But with success came new challenges. The company had grown even more competitive, and there were new pressures to keep up with the changing market demands. Emma found herself working longer hours, attending endless meetings, and constantly strategizing for the next big move. Yet, despite the pressure, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Every decision, every late-night strategy session, and every challenge had led her to this point. She was shaping the future of the company, and that was exactly what she had always dreamed of. One day, after a particularly grueling week, Victor called her into his office. He had been distant lately, caught up in his own responsibilities, so Emma wasn't sure what to expect. When she walked in, she saw that he had a serious look on his face, the kind he used when he had something important to discuss. "Sit down, Emma," he said, motioning to the chair in front of his desk. Emma sat down, instantly feeling the tension in the air. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to gauge his mood. Victor looked at her for a moment, then spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about the future. Yours and the company's. We've been through a lot together, and you've come so far, but I think it's time for you to take the next big step." Emma's heart raced. She had learned to take on new challenges, but this felt different. What could be bigger than what she was already doing? "Next step?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "What do you mean?" Victor leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. "You've grown so much, Emma. I see so much potential in you, and I think it's time for you to lead not just the departments you're already in charge of, but the entire company. I want you to take over as CEO." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Emma blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. CEO? She had come a long way, but was she ready for this? Victor saw the hesitation in her eyes. "I know it's a big leap," he said gently, "but you've earned it. You've proven yourself time and again. You have the vision, the determination, and the leadership skills to take this company to new heights. And I want you to be the one to do it." Emma felt a wave of emotion flood over her. She had worked so hard to get to this point, but to take on the mantle of CEO? It was a responsibility that felt almost too big. "Victor, I'm honored," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "But I don't know if I'm ready. This is such a huge responsibility. What if I fail?" Victor stood up and walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You won't fail, Emma. I have complete faith in you. You've already proven yourself as a leader. This is the next step, and I'll be here to help you along the way." Emma took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. This was what she had always wanted, wasn't it? To be in charge, to make the big decisions, to shape the future. But the weight of that responsibility was daunting. She had always worked in the shadow of others, learning, growing, and taking on challenges step by step. Now, the time had come to step into the spotlight. She had to ask herself, was she ready? She looked up at Victor, who was waiting for her answer. She could see the confidence in his eyes, the unwavering belief he had in her. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. She wasn't just the girl who had walked into this company months ago, unsure of her place. She was a leader, and it was time for her to take charge. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady now. "I'm ready." Victor smiled, a look of pride on his face. "I knew you would be. Congratulations, Emma. You've earned this." In the days that followed, Emma found herself preparing for the transition. She met with the board of directors, familiarized herself with the financials of the company, and began to make decisions that would shape the future of the business. The weight of being the CEO was both exhilarating and overwhelming, but Emma was determined to prove that she was up for the challenge. As the first official day of her new role arrived, Emma stood at the head of the company's boardroom, looking around at the people who had once been her peers, but who were now looking to her for direction. She felt the weight of their expectations, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt empowered. This was her moment. She was ready to lead. The meeting began, and Emma confidently stepped into her new role. She made the introductions, presented her vision for the future, and outlined the steps she would take to bring the company to new heights. The room was filled with attentive faces, and Emma felt a surge of pride. She had come so far, further than she ever thought possible. As the meeting came to a close, Victor stood up and smiled at her. "You did great," he said, his voice warm with pride. "You're going to do amazing things, Emma. I have no doubt." Emma smiled back, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over her. She had stepped into this role with trepidation, but now, she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. This was just the beginning. There was still so much to accomplish, but Emma knew that with the strength she had found within herself, there was nothing she couldn't do. She was the CEO now, and she was ready to lead her company into the future. With the weight of her new responsibilities as CEO, Emma dove headfirst into the complexities of running the company. Every decision she made had a ripple effect, and every day, she felt the mounting pressure to ensure that the company continued to thrive. But with that pressure came a newfound sense of purpose. She wasn't just making decisions, she was shaping the future. As the months passed, Emma's leadership style evolved. She wasn't afraid to take risks, but she also learned when to lean on her team for support. The more she worked with the various departments, the more she realized how much she depended on the people around her. They were just as integral to the company's success as she was. She made a point to listen, to understand their challenges, and to celebrate their victories. Her leadership was no longer just about results. It was about creating a culture where everyone felt valued and empowered. Yet, the job was not without its challenges. The corporate world was full of fierce competition, and the pressure from the board to keep increasing profits never seemed to ease. Emma often found herself awake late into the night, brainstorming strategies to stay ahead of the curve. It was exhausting, but she knew that this was the life she had chosen. She had worked hard to get here, and now, it was up to her to maintain the success that had been built. One day, as Emma was preparing for a major merger, she received a phone call that caught her off guard. It was from Victor. "Emma," his voice crackled through the phone. "I need you to meet me at the office. We need to talk about something important." Her stomach twisted with nerves. She had become accustomed to her independence, and Victor's unexpected request made her feel like a student once again. She quickly gathered her things and headed to the office, wondering what this conversation could possibly mean. When she arrived, Victor was waiting for her in the conference room. He had a serious look on his face, and his usual confidence seemed tempered with concern. "What's going on?" Emma asked, sitting across from him. "It's about the merger," Victor said, his voice low. "I know you've been working tirelessly on this, but there's something you need to know." Emma felt her heart race. "What is it?" "The company we're merging with," Victor began, "has some financial instability that's not being made public. I've just gotten word that they might not be as reliable as we thought." Emma's mind raced. A failed merger could set everything back: her work, her efforts, the company's reputation. "What should we do?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to be cautious," Victor said. "I don't want you to make any decisions without fully understanding the risks. We have to consider the long-term impact." Emma nodded, absorbing his words. She had trusted her instincts up until now, but this was different. This was the moment that would define her leadership. "I'll do what it takes to make the right decision," she said, her voice firm. "I won't rush into anything. We'll investigate everything thoroughly before moving forward." Victor looked at her with a mixture of admiration and pride. "That's the approach I was hoping for," he said. "You're ready for this, Emma." "I have no doubt." Over the next few days, Emma worked closely with the finance and legal teams, reviewing every piece of data related to the merger. She felt the pressure building, but she kept her focus. It was clear that the company they were about to merge with had more hidden risks than they had anticipated. But Emma refused to let fear control her decisions. She was determined to make the right call. Finally, after exhausting every option, Emma made the decision to halt the merger. It wasn't an easy choice, but she knew it was the right one. She called a meeting with the board and explained her reasoning, presenting all the data she had gathered. At first, there was pushback. The board was concerned about the potential loss of opportunity. But Emma stood her ground. "We can't risk our future for a quick gain," she said. "We need a partner who can offer long-term stability, not just short-term profit. I'm not willing to compromise on that." The room went silent as the board members processed her words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, one of the senior members spoke up. "I agree with you, Emma," he said, his tone thoughtful. "We've worked too hard to let something like this jeopardize everything." One by one, the rest of the board members nodded in agreement. Emma felt a surge of pride as she realized that her decision had not only been the right one, but had earned her the respect of the people who had once doubted her. Later that day, as Emma sat alone in her office, she reflected on the decision she had made. It had been a tough call, and there was no guarantee that they wouldn't face backlash in the future. But Emma knew deep down that this was what leadership was about. It wasn't just about making the right decisions when things were easy. It was about standing firm when things got tough. As the days turned into weeks, Emma's reputation as a strong, decisive leader grew. She continued to make strategic decisions that propelled the company forward, earning respect from both her peers and her team. And yet, despite all her success, there was one thing Emma still struggled with: finding a balance between work and her personal life. She had become so focused on her career that she had neglected her relationships. But she realized that to be truly successful, she needed to find harmony in both aspects of her life. One evening, as she was finishing up a long day at the office, she received a message from Victor. "You've done a great job, Emma. But don't forget to take care of yourself too. You're worth more than just your work." His words struck a chord with her. She had been so focused on proving herself that she had forgotten to enjoy life outside of work. The next day, she made a promise to herself to do better, both as a leader and as someone who deserved time for herself. The journey had been long, and there would be more challenges ahead. But Emma knew she was stronger now than she had ever been. With Victor's support and her own determination, she was ready to face whatever came next. As Emma continued to lead her company with grace and determination, she began to experience a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. The pressure was still there, of course, but now it felt more like a challenge to embrace rather than a burden to bear. Her role as CEO had taken her to new heights, and with each success, she felt herself growing more confident, more capable. Yet, despite her professional success, there was still one area of her life that felt unbalanced. Over the past few months, Emma had poured everything into her work. The late nights, the constant meetings, the never-ending emails. It had all taken a toll on her personal life. Her friends and family had noticed her absence, and Emma couldn't deny that she had neglected the relationships that had once meant so much to her. It was one of the few things that weighed heavily on her heart. One evening, after another long day at the office, Emma sat in her sleek office chair, staring out at the city skyline. The lights of the city twinkled in the distance, and the world outside seemed to move at a pace much slower than the whirlwind of her life. She ran a hand through her hair, letting out a deep sigh. She had always prided herself on her ability to balance work and life, but now it felt like everything had become consumed by her job. She was so focused on leading the company that she had forgotten what it meant to truly live outside of it. As if on cue, her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from her childhood friend, Lily. "Are you free this weekend? I miss you. We need to catch up." Emma smiled at the message. It had been months since she had spent any real time with Lily. She hadn't even realized how much she had missed their conversations until now. The reminder of what she had been missing hit her hard. She was still the same person, still the same friend, but somewhere along the way, she had let her personal life take a back seat. She quickly typed a reply. "Yes. Let's catch up. I'd love that." She felt a sense of relief wash over her as she pressed send. It was a small step, but it was the first step toward finding that balance again. The next weekend, Emma and Lily met at their favorite coffee shop. The moment Emma saw her, she felt a rush of familiarity. Lily was the same as always, warm, open, and full of life. They hugged, and for a moment, Emma felt like she had stepped out of her high-powered CEO role and back into her old self. "I've missed you so much," Lily exclaimed as they sat down at a cozy table by the window. "How have you been? It feels like ages since we've had a real conversation." Emma chuckled, feeling the weight of the past few months lift off her shoulders. "I've been good. Busy, but good," she replied. "I just got caught up in everything at work. It's been a whirlwind." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Caught up in work? I thought you were supposed to be the one who kept everything balanced. What happened to that?" Emma sighed, realizing how true Lily's words were. "I don't know. I just got so focused on proving myself, on being the best leader I could be, that I forgot about the things that really matter. Like spending time with friends." Lily smiled softly, reaching across the table to squeeze Emma's hand. "I get it. But don't forget that you're more than just your job. You deserve to enjoy life too, Emma." Emma nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for Lily's words. She had been so focused on achieving success that she had neglected the very things that made her feel whole. "You're right. I need to make time for the people who matter." Over the next few weeks, Emma made a conscious effort to reconnect with the people in her life. She spent weekends with her family, had coffee dates with her friends, and made time for self-care, something she hadn't done in months. She found that when she allowed herself to step away from work and truly live, she returned to her job, with a renewed sense of purpose and energy. It wasn't easy, of course. The demands of being CEO never fully went away, but Emma learned how to set boundaries and prioritize the things that brought her joy. She no longer felt like she was sacrificing her happiness for her career. Instead, she had found a way to balance both. One evening, as Emma sat at her desk, reviewing some new business proposals, she received a message from Victor. She hadn't heard from him in a while, and his message instantly caught her attention. "I've been thinking about how far you've come, Emma. You've grown into an incredible leader. But remember, success isn't just about what you achieve at work. It's also about living a full, happy life. Don't forget to enjoy the journey." Emma smiled as she read the message. Victor's words had always stuck with her, and this reminder meant more than he probably knew. She had come so far, but now, she knew that true success wasn't just about leading a company. It was about living a life she could be proud of in all aspects. That night, Emma made a promise to herself. She would continue to lead with passion, but she would also remember to live with intention. She would build a life that included not only her career, but also the relationships, the joy, and the experiences that made it all worthwhile. As she turned off her desk lamp and headed home, Emma felt at peace. She was ready for the next chapter, ready to embrace both her professional achievements and her personal happiness. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long time, Emma knew she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As Emma's confidence grew, so did the weight of the responsibilities on her shoulders. The company was thriving, and her leadership was being recognized by everyone around her. But with each success, new challenges arose. The expectations placed on her were ever increasing, and she was feeling the pressure more than ever. The balance she had worked so hard to find between her personal and professional life was now becoming harder to maintain. She had come so far, but the road ahead seemed to stretch endlessly. One afternoon, while reviewing quarterly reports in her office, Emma felt a familiar sensation creeping in, the overwhelming sense that she had to do it all perfectly. She had become the leader everyone looked to for guidance, and while she was proud of her accomplishments, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was falling short. Her phone buzzed on her desk, interrupting her thoughts. It was a text from Victor. "I need you to meet me at the office. We need to talk about the next phase of the company's strategy." Emma felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety as she quickly gathered her things and made her way to Victor's office. She had learned so much from him over the past year, but she still couldn't shake the sense that every decision she made carried more weight now that she was leading the company. When she walked into Victor's office, she found him standing by the window, looking out over the city. He turned as she entered, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made Emma pause. "Come in, Emma," he said, his voice calm but filled with purpose. "I've been thinking a lot about the future, both for you and the company." Emma took a seat, sensing that this conversation would be a turning point. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her voice steady but betraying a hint of nervousness. Victor walked over to his desk and sat across from her, leaning forward slightly. "You've done an incredible job over the past year," he began. "But I can see that the pressure is starting to take a toll on you. The balance you've been working so hard to maintain, work and personal life, is being tested. I want to make sure you don't burn out." Emma was taken aback by his words. It wasn't often that Victor showed concern for anything other than the company's performance. "I'm managing," she said, not wanting to appear weak. "I'm just learning as I go." Victor nodded slowly, his gaze unwavering. "I know you are, and you've handled everything with grace. But I've seen how much you've been pushing yourself, and I want you to know that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to do it all alone, Emma." Emma sat back, absorbing his words. She had always prided herself on being strong, on being the one people relied on, but Victor's concern made her realize that she had been shouldering more than she could handle. She had always believed that if she worked hard enough, she could make everything work. But perhaps she was mistaken. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, unsure of where this conversation was headed. Victor leaned back in his chair, his eyes thoughtful. "I think it's time for you to delegate more. You have a team that trusts you, and they're ready to take on more responsibility. It's okay to lean on them, and it's okay to step back when you need to." Emma hesitated. She had always felt like a leader should carry the weight of everything, but Victor's words were starting to make sense. She wasn't in this alone anymore. "I'm just afraid of letting go," she admitted. "If I delegate too much, What if things fall through the cracks? Victor smiled gently. Emma, you've built a team for a reason. You've taught them well, and they're capable. Trust them. Trust yourself. You don't have to do everything by yourself to prove you're a good leader. His words sank in, and for the first time in a while, Emma felt a sense of relief. She had been so caught up in trying to be perfect that she had forgotten that leadership wasn't about doing everything herself. It was about empowering others to succeed. Thank you, Victor, she said, her voice quiet but sincere. I needed to hear that. Victor nodded, standing up and walking toward the door. I know you'll figure this out, Emma. You've already come so far. But remember, the company thrives because of you and your team, not just because of you alone. As Emma left the office, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to truly reflect on what Victor had said. She didn't have to do it all, and it was okay to ask for help. The pressure didn't have to be all-consuming. That night, she went home earlier than usual, deciding to take a break from work. She spent time with her family, something she had neglected for a long time. They enjoyed a quiet dinner, and for the first time in a while, Emma felt truly present. The next day at work, Emma made the conscious decision to start delegating more. She met with her team, discussing the projects they would take on and empowering them to lead in ways she had once thought only she could. To her surprise, the team thrived in the new structure. They stepped up, taking on more responsibility and bringing fresh ideas to the table. Emma realized that by trusting her team and letting go of some of the weight she had been carrying, she had opened up new possibilities for growth, for herself and for everyone around her. As the weeks passed, Emma found herself balancing her work life with a renewed sense of energy. She was still deeply committed to her role as CEO, but now, she took the time to invest in her relationships, her well-being, and her personal growth. She knew that in order to continue leading effectively, she had to take care of herself too. Emma had learned that leadership wasn't just about making the right decisions for the company. It was about making the right decisions for herself and her people. She had come a long way from the uncertain woman who had once walked into Victor's office, and now, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with strength, wisdom, and the support of her team. As Emma embraced the balance she had been striving for, she began to truly see the impact of her leadership in ways she hadn't expected. Her team was flourishing, and the company's performance continued to rise. The more she delegated, the more the people around her stepped up, and it became clear that leadership wasn't just about being the face of the company. It was about creating an environment where others could thrive, too. But as the company grew, so did the challenges. The competitive nature of the business world never slowed, and the pressure to maintain the momentum was constant. Emma felt it every day, but for the first time, she wasn't shouldering the weight alone. Her team had become stronger and more capable, and they were working together to meet each challenge head-on. Still, there were moments when Emma would wake up in the middle of the night, her mind racing with thoughts about the future. The thought of letting anything slip through the cracks still haunted her. No matter how much progress she had made, the responsibility of being the leader was always present. One particularly long night, after another exhausting round of meetings and strategic planning, Emma sat alone. In her office, the city lights sparkled below, but she barely noticed. She was lost in thought, reviewing data on the latest project and wondering if she had missed something important. A knock at the door startled her. She looked up to see Victor standing in the doorway, his usual confident expression softened by concern. "Am I interrupting?" he asked. Emma shook her head, forcing a smile. "No, just going over some details." Victor stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "I wanted to check in," he said. "You've been working nonstop, and I'm starting to worry about you. You've been carrying the load of this company for so long. I just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had been so focused on the company's success that she had neglected to consider the toll it was taking on her own well-being. "I'm fine," she said quickly, but the words felt hollow. Victor didn't buy it. He walked over to her desk, his eyes scanning the piles of work in front of her. "You're doing amazing work, Emma. But even the best leaders need to take breaks. You can't keep going at this pace without burning out." His words hit home, and for the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to admit the truth. She was exhausted. The weight of it all had finally caught up with her, and no amount of success could change that. "I don't know how to stop," she confessed, her voice quiet. "I feel like if I take a step back, everything will fall apart. Victor sat down across from her, his expression soft but firm. Emma, you've built something incredible here. But you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself, or none of this will matter. Emma looked at him, her heart heavy with the realization that he was right. She had been so focused on proving herself, on leading the company to even greater heights, that she had neglected the very thing that allowed her to keep going, her own health and happiness. I've been so caught up in everything, she said, her voice breaking. I don't know how to slow down. Victor gave her a sympathetic smile. You don't have to slow down, but you need to find balance. You've earned this success, and now it's time to enjoy it. You've got a team that's more than capable of handling things without you having to be involved in every detail. Emma let out a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words sink in. But what if I can't let go? What if something goes wrong? Victor's smile remained calm. You've built a strong foundation, Emma. Trust yourself, trust your team, and trust that taking care of yourself is just as important as taking care of the company. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to consider the possibility of stepping back, even just for a moment. She had worked so hard to get here, but Victor was right. She couldn't continue at this pace without sacrificing her own well-being. The next morning, Emma made the decision to take a weekend off. It felt strange at first, almost like she was doing something wrong, but as she packed her bags and headed out for a short getaway, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She spent the weekend recharging, reconnecting with her family and friends, and enjoying simple pleasures she hadn't allowed herself in years. It was a small step, but it was the first time in a long while that Emma felt like she was living for herself, not just for the company. When she returned to work on Monday, she felt refreshed and ready to take on the challenges ahead. The break had given her a new perspective, and she was determined to find a better balance between her personal life and her professional life. As the weeks went by, Emma continued to delegate more and trust her team. She made time for her relationships, prioritizing the people who mattered most. And as she did, she found that the company continued to thrive. Her leadership wasn't just about being in the office every day. It was about empowering her team, making strategic decisions, and maintaining the balance that allowed her to be the best version of herself. Emma had come a long way from the woman who had once been overwhelmed by the pressures of her new role. Now, she knew that success wasn't just about achieving more. It was about taking care of herself along the way. With the support of her team, her friends, and Victor, Emma was ready for whatever challenges the future would bring. She had learned that true leadership wasn't just about the work. It was about finding harmony in all aspects of life. As Emma settled into her new rhythm, a balance between work and personal life that had once seemed impossible now felt attainable. Her weekends spent reconnecting with her family, the evenings out with friends, and the moments of stillness she had once neglected had all become a necessary part of her life. She had made peace with the fact that she didn't have to be at the office every waking moment to be a successful leader. But that didn't mean the challenges stopped. As the company continued to grow, so did the pressure to keep innovating, to stay ahead of the competition, and to ensure that every move she made was the right one. One afternoon, while Emma was walking out of a board meeting, her phone buzzed with a message from Victor. We need to talk. I have something big to discuss with you. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had gotten used to working closely with Victor, but she couldn't help but wonder what this new conversation might entail. He was rarely the bearer of bad news, but she knew the stakes were high. She quickly texted back, I'm free in an hour. I'll be in your office. When she walked into Victor's office, she found him already seated at his desk, looking over some documents. He looked up as she entered, a look of concentration on his face. Sit down, he said, his tone a bit more serious than usual. Emma sat, waiting for him to speak. There's something I've been meaning to tell you, Victor began. The company has been approached with an acquisition offer. A major tech conglomerate wants to buy us out. Emma's eyes widened. Acquisitions were always on the table in business, but this was different. This wasn't just about a partnership, it was about a complete buyout. Who's making the offer? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Victor glanced down at the papers in front of him, then met her eyes. It's a big name in the industry, one of the most influential companies around. They've been watching us for a while, and now they want to bring us under their umbrella. Emma sat back in her chair, absorbing the information. This was huge. It was the kind of offer most companies dreamed of, and she knew that on the surface, it would look like a massive win. The company would have the resources to grow faster, expand into new markets, and leverage a more powerful network. But Emma also knew that an acquisition came with its own set of challenges. The identity of the company would change, the culture would shift, and the people who had helped build it would be at the mercy of new leadership. What's your take on this? Emma asked. Do you think it's the right move? Victor took a deep breath. I'm torn. On the one hand, this could be a huge opportunity for the company. The resources, the reach, the infrastructure, they could take us to places we couldn't go on our own. But on the other hand, we'd be giving up a lot of what makes this company ours. The culture, the autonomy, the vision we've built, it would all change. Emma nodded slowly, her mind spinning. She knew that leading the company into an acquisition wasn't just about the bottom line. It was about preserving the values and mission that had made the company successful in the first place. It was a decision that would affect every person who had been part of the company's journey, not just the board or shareholders. I need time to think about this, Emma said finally, her voice quiet but firm. This isn't something I can rush into. Victor leaned forward, his tone softening. Take all the time you need. But I want you to understand, this isn't just about business strategy. It's about what kind of company we want to be. Do we want to continue our journey independently, or do we want to grow under someone else's umbrella? Emma spent the next few days in a whirlwind of meetings, conversations with trusted colleagues, and reflections on what had gotten the company to this point. She talked with her leadership team, weighing the pros and cons of the acquisition and hearing from them about the culture they had built together. More than anything, she wanted to protect what had made them a tight-knit, innovative company that had pushed boundaries. She couldn't just let that go without a fight. As she sat in her office late one night, reviewing projections and reading over the terms of the acquisition, Emma made a decision. She wasn't ready to give up the company's identity. Not yet. The team had worked too hard, fought too much to be here, and she wasn't willing to risk it all for a quick financial gain. She picked up the phone and called Victor. Victor, I've made my decision, she said, her voice clear and resolute. We're not going through with the acquisition. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Victor's voice came through, calm but understanding. I thought you might say that, he said. Are you ready for the next step? Emma smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. I'm ready, she said. Let's build the future we've always dreamed of, together, on our own terms. The next few weeks were filled with meetings, discussions, and strategic planning. Emma's decision to turn down the acquisition wasn't just a rejection of a business deal. It was a declaration of independence for the company. She wasn't going to let anyone dictate their future. The decision brought with it its own set of challenges. There were risks, certainly, but Emma knew that she had a team behind her, and that together, they would continue to grow in ways that stayed true to their mission and values. As the company moved forward without the acquisition, Emma couldn't help but feel proud of the decision. It was bold, it was risky, but it was theirs. And in that moment, Emma knew that true leadership wasn't just about making the right decision in the boardroom. It was about standing firm in the face of uncertainty and doing what was right for the people you led. And as she looked around at her team, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They had built something incredible together, and now, they were about to take it even further. It was a new chapter, and Emma was ready to lead them into it, with confidence and purpose. In the weeks following her decision to turn down the acquisition, Emma felt a renewed sense of energy and purpose. The company had chosen its own path, one that reflected its values and long-term vision. It wasn't an easy road, but it was theirs to travel, and Emma was determined to lead the charge. The board and the leadership team rallied behind her, confident that the company could grow and thrive without the need to rely on a corporate giant. The focus shifted, from simply surviving to creating a lasting impact, something more than just profits. Emma spent more time with her team, making sure that everyone understood the shared vision. She emphasized the importance of innovation, of staying true to the mission they had all worked so hard to build. Her leadership was no longer about making just the tough calls. It was about making sure everyone felt involved and empowered in their journey. She encouraged an open dialogue, where ideas could flow freely. It was the culture of transparency and collaboration that had made the company special in the first place, and Emma was determined to preserve that. The company's progress began to accelerate in unexpected ways. With the acquisition off the table, Emma and her leadership team focused on exploring new business avenues, developing cutting-edge technology, and expanding into untapped markets. Each department had its own set of challenges, but the team faced them together. Emma felt proud of how far they had come in such a short period of time. The next big test came when a key competitor launched a groundbreaking product, a game-changer in the industry. Emma knew this could be a turning point. If they didn't respond quickly, they risked losing their competitive edge. The pressure was immense. She convened an emergency meeting with her senior leadership team, knowing they had to act fast. As the team gathered in the conference room, Emma stood at the head of the table, her mind racing through potential strategies. "This is big," she said, her voice firm. "We've always prided ourselves on being ahead of the curve, and we can't let this moment slip by. We need to be bold, strategic, and creative." The room buzzed with energy as the team brainstormed solutions. Everyone brought something to the table: ideas for new product features, marketing strategies, and ways to leverage existing relationships with clients. Emma felt the familiar sense of camaraderie she had always cherished in her team. They weren't just solving a problem, they were innovating together. By the end of the meeting, they had a game plan. It was aggressive, but calculated. Emma knew that the next few weeks would be crucial. It was a gamble, but with the strength of her team behind her, she felt confident in their ability to turn the situation to their advantage. Over the following month, the company worked tirelessly to roll out a response to the competitor's product. The marketing campaign was designed to highlight their strengths, focusing on the unique features that set their product apart. Emma worked closely with the product development team, overseeing every step of the process to ensure they met their deadlines. There were sleepless nights, endless revisions, and constant updates, but Emma remained calm under pressure. Her leadership was not about being at the front of the pack every moment. It was about ensuring that everyone was working toward a common goal. The launch day finally arrived, and the response was overwhelming. The new product was well received, and the marketing campaign generated significant buzz. The company had not only met the challenge head-on, but had come out stronger on the other side. Emma allowed herself a moment to breathe, but she knew the work was far from over. The success of the product launch was a testament to the power of teamwork and innovation. But Emma also knew that their competitors would not rest for long. The industry was always evolving, and the next challenge was always just around the corner. But as Emma looked around the room at her team, she felt a deep sense of pride. They had faced a tough situation and turned it into an opportunity. They had shown resilience, creativity, and an unwavering belief in each other. That was what made the company strong, not just the products they created, but the people who stood behind them. A few weeks later, as Emma sat in her office reviewing the company's performance, she felt a sense of peace that she hadn't experienced in a long time. The balance she had worked so hard to create was finally in place. She had learned that success wasn't just about pushing forward relentlessly. It was about knowing when to pause, take a step back, and trust that the team she had built was more than capable of carrying the load. It had taken time, but Emma was starting to understand the true meaning of leadership. It was about guiding others, nurturing their strengths, and knowing when to let them take the lead. It was about believing in herself and her team, and having the courage to make decisions that aligned with her values, even when the road ahead wasn't clear. Emma had come a long way since she first walked into the company. She had grown, learned, and adapted to the challenges that came with leading a business. And as she looked out the window at the city below, she knew that the future held endless possibilities. There would always be challenges to face, but Emma was no longer afraid. She was ready for whatever came next. With her team by her side, she knew they could achieve anything. As the months passed, Emma continued to steer the company forward, her leadership solidifying with each new success. Yet despite the company's growth and the positive shifts in the workplace, Emma began to feel the weight of her decisions more profoundly. The high stakes of being the CEO of a thriving company had never felt more real. The pressure to innovate, stay ahead of the competition, and ensure the well-being of her team was an ever-present force, and there were moments when Emma felt that familiar sense of exhaustion creeping in again. Even though she had taken steps to balance her personal life with her professional one, the demands of leadership had a way of filling every moment. There were times when it felt like the line between work and life blurred too easily, and Emma found herself caught in the middle. She would sit up late at night, staring at the numbers, refining strategies, and tweaking reports, all while reminding herself that the future of the company depended on her decisions. It was easy to forget to take care of herself in the midst of it all. One evening, while reviewing the financials of a new product launch, Emma received a call from Victor. It was unusual for him to call her at this hour, and the tone in his voice immediately caught her attention. "Emma," he began, his voice steady but concerned, "I know you've been pushing yourself hard, but I think it's time we talked about something." Emma's heart rate quickened. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to maintain her composure. "You've been working nonstop," Victor continued, "and I'm starting to worry. You can't keep up this pace forever. You need to step back and take a real break. You've earned it, and I think it's time you give yourself permission to rest." Emma's first instinct was to brush off his concern. She had too much on her plate. There were meetings tomorrow, decisions to be made, strategies to finalize. The thought of taking a break felt almost impossible. "I'm fine," Emma said quickly, though her voice wavered. "I can handle it. There's just a lot to do right now." Victor paused for a moment before responding. "I know you're used to handling everything on your own, but Emma, you're not superhuman. You can't keep doing this to yourself. If you don't slow down, you'll burn out, and none of this will matter. The company, the team, it all depends on you being at your best. And right now you're not." Emma exhaled slowly, feeling the truth of his words sink in. She had been so caught up in the whirlwind of her responsibilities that she had failed to see how much it was taking out of her. Victor's words were the wake-up call she had needed. "You're right," she admitted quietly. "I've been pushing too hard. Maybe it's time I step back for a bit." "Good," Victor replied with a reassuring tone. "I want you to take some time off. You've earned it. Rest, recharge, and come back stronger. The company will be here when you return, and your team is more than capable of holding down the fort while you take care of yourself." Emma took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. She hadn't realized how much she needed permission to rest, to step away from the constant grind. But Victor had given her the clarity she needed. She hung up the phone and sat in silence for a moment, letting the decision settle. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to entertain the idea of truly stepping away from work. The next day, Emma made arrangements for her time off. She delegated responsibilities to her trusted team members, made sure all ongoing projects were in good hands, and assured her leadership team that she would be available if anything urgent came up. With a sense of relief, she closed her laptop and stepped away from her desk. The decision felt liberating. As the weekend approached, Emma took a trip to the mountains, something she hadn't done in years. She spent her days hiking, meditating, and simply enjoying the natural beauty around her. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to truly disconnect from work. No emails, no meetings, no deadlines, just peace. During her time away, Emma reflected on her journey. She thought about the woman who had first walked into the company, unsure of herself and struggling to find her place. She had come so far, building the company, making tough decisions, earning the respect of her team, and transforming herself into a leader. But she also realized that she had become so focused on the future and the demands of the role that she had forgotten the importance of self-care. The rest of her time in the mountains was a revelation. Emma found a new sense of clarity and inner peace. She wasn't just the CEO, she was a person with needs, with dreams, and with limits. She realized that leadership wasn't just about achieving success. It was about nurturing herself along the way. When Emma returned to the office, she felt reinvigorated. She had the energy to tackle challenges with a clear mind, and she no longer felt weighed down by the constant pressure. The team had continued to work well in her absence, and the company had not missed a beat. Emma knew that her break had been the right choice, and she was now more committed than ever to leading with balance. In the months that followed, Emma learned to implement a better work-life balance. She set clearer boundaries between work and personal time, making sure to spend quality time with her loved ones and taking time for herself. Her leadership remained strong, but now it was built on a foundation of well-being and self-respect. She was still driven, still passionate about the company's success, but now she understood that she couldn't give her best if she didn't take care of herself first. The future was bright for Emma and the company, and as she looked forward, she knew that the journey was far from over. She was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, but she also knew that true leadership was about taking care of what mattered most, both the company and herself. After Emma's much-needed break, she returned to the office with a renewed sense of energy and a clearer vision for the future. The weight of leadership still loomed large, but now she was better equipped to handle it. With the company continuing to thrive, Emma knew that maintaining the right balance between her personal life and work was critical to her long-term success. As the company began to expand into new markets and launch innovative products, the excitement of growth was tempered by the realization that each decision had even greater consequences now. Her leadership was becoming more strategic, less reactive, and more focused on sustainability. She had learned that running a company was about more than just growing it quickly. It was about setting up processes and building systems that would ensure its success for the long term. One afternoon, as Emma walked into a strategy meeting with her leadership team, she sensed an air of excitement. The team had been working on a new initiative for the past few months, one that would not only expand their reach into new markets, but also redefine their brand. The idea was ambitious, but if executed correctly, it could elevate the company to an entirely new level. "We've been discussing this for a while," her VP of Marketing, Sarah, began, "and we think it's time to take a bold step forward. The new initiative will focus on increasing brand recognition in emerging markets, but it also ties in with our commitment to sustainability." Emma nodded as she listened to Sarah. The concept made sense. Leverage their current success to expand into new regions while keeping their commitment to the environment at the core of their mission. But as always, Emma was cautious. "What are the risks?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "We can't ignore the potential downsides. We've worked hard to build what we have, and I don't want to jeopardize it." Sarah and the rest of the team exchanged glances, and then Sarah spoke up again. "The main risk is the uncertainty of the new markets. It's a different demographic, different buying habits. We don't know how our brand will be received. There's also the issue of supply chain. Expanding too quickly could strain our resources." Emma paused, taking a deep breath as she processed the information. She had always been someone who thought carefully about every decision, but she also recognized that sometimes the biggest opportunities came with the greatest risks. "We need to move forward with caution," she said finally. "Let's make sure we have data to support our assumptions, and let's ensure our infrastructure can handle the expansion. I'm willing to take the risk, but we need to be prepared for the challenges ahead." The meeting continued, with the team diving into the specifics of the new initiative. Emma made sure to involve everyone, ensuring that each department had a voice in shaping the plan. By the end of the session, they had a clear strategy, with milestones and contingency plans in place. The excitement in the room was palpable. As the weeks went by, the company worked tirelessly on the new initiative. Emma remained deeply involved, overseeing the implementation but also allowing her team to take the lead on the ground level. She knew that her role was to guide the ship, but the crew was just as important. The day finally came when they were ready to launch the initiative. Emma stood in front of the team, feeling a mix of anticipation and excitement. "This is a big step for all of us," she said. "We've worked hard to get here, and now we have the opportunity to change the game. Let's make sure we stay true to our mission and values. We're not just expanding our reach. We're creating something that will last for generations." The launch was a success. The response from the new markets was overwhelmingly positive, and the company's brand quickly gained recognition. The initiative didn't just drive sales. It strengthened the company's reputation as a forward-thinking, socially responsible business. Emma felt a profound sense of pride as she watched the company take on a new identity. The risk had paid off, and it was clear that their commitment to sustainability and innovation had resonated with consumers. But the success also brought new challenges. As the company grew, so did the complexity of managing it. Emma was faced with decisions she had never imagined, and while she was no longer overwhelmed by the responsibility, she felt the weight of each move more deeply than ever. She had learned that leadership was not just about making decisions quickly. It was about ensuring that those decisions were aligned with the company's long-term goals. It was about understanding the broader impact of every choice. One evening, after a particularly busy day, Emma sat alone in her office. She looked out at the skyline, reflecting on everything the company had accomplished. She had come so far from the unsure woman who had first stepped into this role. Now, She was a seasoned leader, capable of navigating the challenges of the business world with confidence and clarity. But as she thought about the future, she realized that she still had so much more to learn. Being a leader wasn't just about success. It was about growth, both for herself and for the company. The next phase of her journey was just beginning, and Emma was ready to meet it head-on. With a strong team, a clear vision, and the lessons she had learned along the way, she knew that the best was yet to come. As Emma watched her company expand and take on new challenges, she could not shake the feeling that she was at a crossroads. The success they had experienced in recent months was undeniable, but with that success came a new set of obstacles. The pace had increased, and the stakes had grown higher. The company was no longer the small, agile entity it once was. It had become a significant player in the industry, and now, more than ever, Emma felt the weight of her decisions. It was no longer just about launching a product or expanding into a new market. It was about maintaining the company's identity and ensuring that the values they had built the company on remained intact. The pressure was different now. It wasn't about proving that she could handle being a leader anymore. It was about proving that she could handle the responsibility of guiding this company into its next phase. One afternoon, while Emma was sitting in her office, reviewing the company's latest growth projections, she received an unexpected call from one of her board members. "Emma," the voice on the other end said, "there's something we need to discuss. There's been a potential opportunity that could significantly affect the direction of the company." Emma sat up straight, her mind immediately racing. The board had always been a voice of reason, but they had never brought something like this to her before. "What kind of opportunity?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. "It's a partnership opportunity with one of our biggest competitors," the board member continued. "They've approached us with an offer to merge, combining our strengths and resources to dominate the market. It could take us to new heights, Emma." The words hung in the air for a moment. A merger with a competitor? It was the kind of offer she had always known could come, but had never expected to face so soon. Emma had built this company from the ground up, and the idea of joining forces with someone who had once been an adversary felt like a monumental decision. "I need to think about this," Emma said finally, her voice calm, but her mind racing. "Of course," the board member replied. "Take your time. This is a big decision." The conversation ended, but the questions lingered in Emma's mind. A merger was a huge leap forward, but it came with risks. There would be changes in culture, structure, and possibly in leadership. The company's identity could be lost, and the control she had worked so hard to establish could slip away. On the other hand, the opportunity to join forces with a competitor could provide unmatched growth, access to new markets, and resources that would make them a formidable force in the industry. Emma sat back in her chair, staring at the city skyline, weighing the pros and cons. For the first time in a long time, she didn't have the answers immediately. She could no longer afford to rely on instinct alone. This decision would affect everyone she cared about within the company. After taking a few days to reflect, Emma called a meeting with her senior leadership team. She needed their input, and more importantly, she needed their support. As the team gathered around the table, Emma wasted no time. "We've been approached with an offer to merge with one of our largest competitors," she said, watching as their eyes widened. "It's a big decision, and I want to hear your thoughts before we make any final calls." Sarah, the VP of marketing, was the first to speak. "A merger with them could be a game changer," she said. "They have resources we don't have access to, and their brand is already established in markets we've been struggling to break into. It could give us the edge we need." "But at what cost?" Emma replied, her voice steady but filled with concern. "Merging with them could change everything. The way we operate, our culture, our values. How do we ensure we don't lose what makes us unique?" There was a silence around the table as the team mulled over the question. Finally, David, the COO, spoke. "We can't ignore the fact that this could make us stronger. But we also have to be careful. The risk of losing our identity is real, and that's something we've worked too hard to build. We need to make sure that if we move forward, we're doing so on our terms." Emma nodded slowly. "Exactly. We need to be strategic about this. If we're going to consider this, we need to make sure that our values are protected, that our mission stays intact." Over the next few weeks, Emma and her team worked tirelessly to gather information, evaluate the terms of the proposed merger, and assessed the potential impact on the company's culture and long-term goals. They held countless meetings, spoke with external advisors, and even consulted with employees to get a sense of how they felt about the potential merger. What became clear was that while the financial upside was undeniable, the cultural shift would be challenging. The company had spent years cultivating a unique, collaborative environment, and the fear was that a merger would erode that culture. Emma knew she couldn't make this decision lightly. She needed to be sure that, if they moved forward, they could preserve everything they had built while embracing the opportunities the merger could bring. After many long discussions and sleepless nights, Emma made the difficult decision. They would move forward with the merger, but on their terms. The leadership team would maintain its current structure, with clear agreements in place to ensure that the company's core values and culture were preserved. The next phase would be about integrating the strengths of both companies while maintaining the unique identity they had worked so hard to build. It was a calculated risk, but Emma felt confident that with the right balance, they could navigate this transition successfully. As the merger discussions began to take shape, Emma felt a sense of calm settle over her. She had made the tough decision, and now, it was about execution. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that with her team by her side, they were ready to face whatever came next. Emma had proven to herself that leadership wasn't just about making big decisions. It was about making the right decisions, for the right reasons, and knowing when to trust the people around her. As the company prepared for its next chapter, Emma knew that this was just another step in their journey, and she was ready to lead them forward. As the months went by, Emma's decision to move forward with the merger began to show its promise. The integration process had its challenges, but the leadership team worked tirelessly to ensure the company's culture and values were not compromised. The merging of two companies meant blending different systems, processes, and ways of thinking. But Emma had learned through her years of leadership that transformation didn't have to mean losing identity. It could be about building something stronger, more resilient. The company's employees adjusted to the new structure, and Emma made sure they were supported every step of the way. The communication within the team was more important than ever, and Emma took the lead in fostering an open environment where people felt heard and understood. As the dust began to settle from the merger, Emma found herself once again reflecting on the journey. She had grown so much since the early days of taking on the role of CEO. The woman who had once felt overwhelmed and unsure of her abilities had evolved into a confident leader who understood the value of not just leading, but also listening. It wasn't just about decisions anymore. It was about understanding the human side of leadership, about recognizing that the people in the company were the heartbeat of everything they had built. The new chapter for the company was more than just financial success or market expansion. It was about fostering a culture of collaboration, innovation, and sustainability. Emma had always believed that success was a combination of both professional and personal growth, and now, she was living proof that a strong leader could build something meaningful while also taking care of herself and her team. With the company on solid ground after the merger, Emma was able to turn her focus back to the big picture. What was next? How could they continue to grow while staying true to their mission? Emma knew there would always be challenges ahead, but she was no longer intimidated by them. Instead, she embraced them as opportunities to learn and grow. The next year was filled with milestones. New products were launched, new markets were conquered, and the company's reputation as a leader in the industry grew stronger. Emma worked closely with her team to make sure they were not only achieving success, but also staying true to the values that had brought them this far. They continued to prioritize sustainability and innovation in everything they did, and it was clear that the company's culture was thriving. But through it all, Emma never lost sight of the importance of balance. She knew that leadership wasn't just about pushing forward without pause. It was about taking the time to reflect, to enjoy the journey, and to prioritize the people who made it all possible. Over the next few years, Emma found herself speaking at industry events, sharing her story of how the company had grown from a small startup to a major player in the industry. She often spoke about the importance of leadership that valued people over profits and of staying true to one's vision even in the face of overwhelming pressure. Her story became an inspiration to many, especially young women who dreamed of breaking barriers in business. Emma knew that her journey was far from over. The challenges would keep coming, the landscape would keep shifting, and the competition would continue to grow. But she was ready. She had a team that she could trust, a vision that was clear, and a commitment to making a lasting impact. The future was brighter than ever before. And as she looked around at the company she had helped build, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. There would always be more to accomplish. But for the first time in her career, she felt truly confident that she could lead the company through whatever challenges the future would bring. The road had been long, and it had been hard, but Emma had proven to herself and to the world that she was more than capable of rising to the occasion. She had faced the doubts, the fears, and the obstacles, and she had come out stronger for it. As she sat in her office one afternoon, looking out at the city skyline, Emma smiled. She had come so far, and she was proud of what she had accomplished. But she knew the best was yet to come. The company was on a path to greatness, and with her leadership and the strength of her team, they would continue to break new ground, challenge the status quo, and make a difference in the world. Emma was ready for whatever came next, and she knew that she was not alone on this journey. Together, they would create a future that was not just successful, but meaningful. A future they could all be proud of. In this captivating tale of ambition, growth, and the pursuit of success, we dive deep into the life of a determined individual who rises from humble beginnings to become a key player in the business world. From overcoming self-doubt to making game-changing decisions, these millionaire stories highlight the challenges and triumphs that come with leadership and personal growth. Witness the journey as hard work, dedication, and calculated risks lead to unimaginable success. As the story unfolds, it explores the highs and lows of running a business, making crucial decisions, and navigating complex relationships with partners, employees, and competitors. These millionaire stories offer a raw and inspiring look at what it takes to thrive in the fast-paced, ever-evolving business world. The protagonist's unwavering commitment to their values and vision showcases the resilience and leadership needed to steer a company to greatness. Every twist and turn brings new lessons, and the growth of the company mirrors the personal transformation of its leader. These millionaire stories prove that success is not just about financial achievement, but also about the evolution of character and purpose. By the end, the story reveals how embracing self-care and fostering a positive work culture can lead to lasting impact, both professionally and personally. For anyone looking for inspiration, these millionaire stories provide the blueprint for navigating life's most significant challenges while staying true to oneself.